Hey guys, welcome back to episode number 6. And you already know that the goal is to break the image of tradition
while showing the beauty of walking in wisdom,
bringing the raw and keeping it 100.
Well, Christ at the center, you're either going to hate it or love it.
You guys know you already tuned in to Hate It or Love It. I am your host, Silly V, aka Vanessa. And this is my co-host,
Clarissa Bell.
And today we're going to talk about reparations and how... Yes, we're going to get reparations.
No, we're not talking about
reparations. We're going to talk about reparations.
No, we're not talking about reparations.
Yes, and how racism really exists. And yes, roll the clip, Billy.
No, we're not going to do that. Okay, so I
That's
know...
how you reel them in.
No, we're not going to be reeling them in.
They want that.
No.
All right.
Okay, so... Throughout, as far back as I can remember, I know one side of history, but now I find
the left side or the right side?
It's the wrong side. It's a lie, basically, what we've been told. And I will say that out of everything that I've ever heard growing up, it's nothing like what I'm now discovering. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really cool because it's starting to come up to the forefront. Mm-hmm. Like you see it a lot with The Woman King, that movie coming out, and now people are like, wait a minute, who's Dahomey? Mm-hmm. You know, what are they about? And
Can I throw you off for just a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, it's like Uncle Tom. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was talking to my brother. And I was like, you know who Uncle Tom is? He's like, oh yeah, the guy with the beard and the red and white hat. I was like, you know that poster? That's who he thought Uncle Tom was.
Wow.
And it's so crazy because I never knew what Uncle Tom was. I thought it was like the man. That's what I thought Uncle Tom was. Until somebody called me that. I'm like, look this up.
Yeah.
And that's not what it is. Well, if you know your history, it's Josiah Henson.
Josiah Henson. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, I've only heard about the civil rights movement and everything that took place there, but I never really heard about what took place before that. And as I was digging through history, I was very thrown off by what I found. Mm. You know, they like to say that America is a racist country, but they don't tell you where it came from. They don't tell you. Well, they don't tell you that a lot of the fighting took place within Democrats. Like, they don't tell you that part of it. They just say America's a racist country. And it's like, no. If you look throughout history, actual history, not just the blanket history where they throw all of it in one basket. If you look at it, it was coming through one party and one party only. They were the ones that were fighting to keep the slaves. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting to see how we've been fed this narrative of white men going into Africa, rounding up people, and bringing them against their will to America. And now we're starting to get down to the real history of it. And I think it's really interesting how Don Lemon didn't have much of a comeback.
That's the most funniest clip. Was it this week or last week?
Oh, it's probably last week. But
I thought that was pretty funny. And you know, well, you know what? Roll the clip.
Yeah, we'll roll it.
Well, this is coming when, there's all of this wealth, and you hear about it comes as England is facing rising costs of living, a living crisis, austerity budget cuts, and so on. And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when across the entire world, when slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely. That's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas, trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll continue to discuss in the future. So remember the impact of the supply chain crisis on the economy.
We should definitely discuss that. That's interesting, Hillary. Okay, all right, bye. Yeah. The connection. Yeah, you know what? We got to get to the next segment.
Yeah. But see, it's stuff like that. He has no rebuttal, nothing to say, because that's actual history.
He literally cleared his throat. He's like, shit, she's trying to give them real stuff.
Yeah.
You think he don't know real history?
I don't know.
I think he does. I mean, to me, when I was watching his reaction, I don't know. These people, I think they're very smart. These people in the media, I think they know a lot. They don't care. They don't care about what us peasants, commoners are doing. They're getting their money, and that's all they care about. It's all about the money. The reason I say that he knew is because as soon as she said to go back to where originally, he was like, and his face was just like, I gotta let her finish speaking.
No, but it's just a shame, because you have so many people that are locked in this mindset that the white man did this and the white man did that. And it's like, come to find out, because I mean, I know that I've made videos on it before.
About the white man?
No, as far as like
slavery?
Black people enslaving, Africans enslaving other Africans, which is funny because it's not like it's hidden. It's all there. It's just not right in your face as much as the narrative is.
But you know what? There are books that are banned that actually teach these things to schools. The schools have actually banned them.
Which is kind of interesting, because it's like, for you to say that, why aren't schools teaching this? I did a video a couple of years ago, the hidden Black history. I had history teachers that were messaging me talking about, I had never known this. You're a history teacher. How did you not know this?
Because the curriculum that is being taught in college as well as school is all
the narrative.
Yeah, it's a selected, that's why kids go to Berkeley and come out like crazy people.
Yeah. And the response that I got from many of Black people, they were just like, yo, where's the rest of this video? Can I find this? Can I find this? Can I find this? And it's amazing, because I could see in the algorithm that as it was going up, out of nowhere, they pulled the plug on it. It's so sad, because you have so many people that believe something that did not take place. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't some wicked people. There's always wicked people in the bunch. But to the degree of what they're making it sound like, it's not that at all. And the truth of it, it's almost like they don't even want to address it. I end up coming across Thomas Sowell. Okay. And he's very good when it comes to history. And when I came across this clip a couple of years ago, I just like held on to it. Like, I didn't share it or anything like that. And I saw that it was making its rounds. And I'm like, yo, this is pretty dope, because like people are starting to really see. So I would just like to share a piece of that clip with you guys. So let's roll clip number 2.
Hit it, Billy.
Series Roots by Alex Haley. Challenged on the historical accuracy of Roots, Haley said, I tried to give my people a myth to live by. Contrary to the myths to live by, created by Alex Haley and others, Africans were by no means the innocents portrayed in Roots, baffled as to why white men were coming in and taking their people away in chains. On the contrary, the region of West Africa from which Kunta Kinte supposedly came was one of the great slave-trading regions of the continent, before, during, and after the white man arrived. It was Africans who enslaved their fellow Africans, selling some of these slaves to Europeans or to Arabs and keeping others for themselves. Even at the peak of the Atlantic slave trade, Africans retained more slaves for themselves than they sent to the Western Hemisphere. This pattern was not confined to West Africa, from which most slaves were sent to the Western Hemisphere. In East Africa, the Maasai were feared slave raiders, and other African tribes, either alone or in conjunction with Arabs, enslaved their more vulnerable neighbors. As late as 1891, it was reported that Manyuema slavers had demoralized surrounding tribes, destroying crops, and famine reigned everywhere. Even in the early 20th century, Abyssinians were still raiding other Africans and carrying off slaves. It was 1922 before the British had gained sufficient control in Tanganyika to stamp out slavery there. Arabs were the leading slave raiders in East Africa, ranging over an area larger than all of Europe. The total number of slaves exported from East Africa during the 19th century has been estimated to be at least 2 million. Despite the impression created by Roots, during the era of the massive slave trade from West Africa, a white man was more likely to catch malaria in Africa than to catch slaves himself. The average life expectancy of a white man in the interior of sub-Saharan Africa at that time was less than 1 year. By and large, men from Europe or the Western Hemisphere came to the coasts of Africa, bought their slaves, and left as soon as possible. Even so, the death rates among the white crews of the ships carrying slaves to the Western Hemisphere were as high as the death rates among the slaves themselves. It was only much later, after quinine and other medical measures enabled Europeans to survive where there were tropical diseases, was it possible for them to invade Africa in force and establish empires there. But by then, the Atlantic slave trade had already been ended. During the era of that trade, Africa was largely ruled by Africans, who established the conditions under which slave sales took place. The crew of a slave ship was in no position to defy African rulers and their armies by going out across the land and capturing people willy-nilly. The stronger African peoples captured and enslaved the weaker peoples. The same pattern found over the centuries in Europe, Asia, the Western Hemisphere, and Polynesia. In Nyasaland, the Ngoni and Yao swaggered over and terrorized other tribes. In Uganda, the Baganda made life miserable for their neighbors. And the Nyoro and Hima of Anko enslaved Toro women and children. The Tutsi dominated the Hutu in Rwanda, the Maasai lorded it over the Kikuyu and Kamba, and the latter, in turn, held the Indorobo in a kind of serfdom. It was precisely the fact that Europeans, except for the Portuguese, seldom participated in the raids that captured and enslaved Africans that enabled most people in Europe and the Americas to remain oblivious to the traumatic experience that this was, with some Africans committing suicide to avoid capture and wives being whipped as they tried to cling to their husbands or children. Historian David Breon Davis pointed out that Europeans had little contact with the actual process of enslavement, and that, as late as 1721, the Royal African Company asked its agents to investigate the modes of enslavement in the interior. Europeans typically saw only the end results, enslaved people being offered for sale on the coast.
That's crazy that I didn't know all that.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to me is that I had did a video about the whole woman king thing, and somebody commented, and I just want to read some of it where they were saying how, this isn't anything new. Like, we knew that there were some kingdoms that sold prisoners, right? And I'm thinking, your wording is really interesting here. It's really interesting. So, I addressed his comment, and then he came back and he was like, well, I don't disagree with you, but I think it's really good that, it's really good for us that they're now making a movie about it. And now we can kind of go back and do our own research. And I'm just like, I don't mind them making them. I have no issue with history, true history. But the fact that they're painting this act as something noble, I'm done with the fiction,
And Roots, I mean, I didn't even know what Roots about. I only remember the commercial.
Mm-hmm.
What's your name, boy?
Yeah, well, even he said that it was a mythical thing.
Sorry. That's all I remember.
Yeah, but going back to the comment, after I address his comment, then he comes back to me and he's like, I don't disagree with anything that you just said, because they did get out of the business, right? No.
Does he know? Text him.
No. No, but as I was reading his comments, I'm thinking to myself, if you can be this lenient with Africans doing it to Africans, why can't you do that here in America?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you this lenient to what you guys claim to be the most atrocious thing to ever happen in our history? But you're being so forgiving. And just thinking about that, it kind of reminds me of black on black crime. You guys
Yes.
are okay with killing each other, and you'll come up with all types of reasons as, well, that's what it is, or,
Yeah.
systemically, or, they don't know any, or, no, I can't say
Like
that
what
they
it
don't
should
know
be.
any better.
This should be
But-
like it's wrong. It should. That's what you should really
yeah,
say.
but the way that they'll justify that to me is kind of like the same vibe that I'm getting when it comes to justifying slavery done by black people. Even in America, there were slave owners that were black, and some of their slaves were white. I literally got into a debate with this one guy.
They didn't know that
No,
white people were slaves.
No, because back then it was
Everybody
a different
was
time.
slaves.
If you were poor.
Yeah, like that was
If
a
you-
poor and rich thing. It
Yeah.
wasn't a black and white thing.
There was actually, I did a video on it, on how I saw reparations being stupid. You could always look on my YouTube page. It's on there. It's about reparations. But the guy that I was talking about, he was a wealthy black man in the area. Now, when slaves first got here, you could travel north, but it would be like a servitude thing, right? You would work until you were able to pay off or, buy your freedom. And then they would give you property and slaves and so forth and whatnot. Well, this guy, him and his wife end up being wealthy black people in the area. All right. They had a couple of white slaves. Do you know that when the white slave worked off his debt, that his neighbor, who was a white man, heard about it and was like, you need to let this guy go. And he's like, I ain't letting nobody go. So they took it to court. Do you know who won?
The black guy with
The
the
black
slave?
man. The black man. You know why?
Because he's
he
rich.
had money.
Yeah, it's all about
It's always
money.
been about money.
It's always been, and
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing that I just wish people would just open their minds to, that it's about money. It was never about race. But because a lot of people cling to it, they hold on to that because they could just dangle that race card in front of you and you'll hate your neighbor for not believing in the same thing.
Yeah.
Did you know, and I don't know how true this is, I would love to look it up, but you remember when Nancy and, was it the Soros guy and all them kneeled in like the White House and they had like this African
Yep, I heard
pattern?
about that.
Do you know that was actually the ones who sold
pattern,
the
yep.
sold the slave? Because the way, and I didn't know this, so these African patterns actually aren't just decorative. They're decorative, yeah, but they actually symbolize certain tribes.
Yep.
And they represented the tribe that sold black people.
Yeah, I know. I heard there was a couple of Africans that I saw made videos about it. Like, do they know what this means?
They definitely do.
Yeah,
They
so-
definitely. If anybody knows the history, it's definitely the Democrats. They're doing their best and darndest to erase it and change it
Yeah.
we don't point the finger back at them.
Yep. It's the wildest thing to me. Like, it's the wildest thing to me, the way that they scream about racism and the atrocities that took place in America. I'm thinking it was all done by your hand. And just to go one more thing on the guy that left the comment. After I addressed him and I told him, if you can be this forgiving, why not do that here in America? He did not respond back. That was it. I ain't got nothing else to say to that, because I think it hits them in the face. Like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to still hold on to this fictional lie that I've been fed because it doesn't jive with the narrative. So I'll disregard that, but I'll try to justify it when it comes to black on black.
Well, yeah, and I bet you he blocked you too, because that's what they do. They shut off the lines of communication. They're like, you know what? I don't agree with you, and I'm not sure really why, nor can I combat what you're saying. So let's just shut the whole conversation down.
Yeah.
And I mean, Facebook, Twitter, all of them, they've shown us that that's what you do.
Yeah.
That type of speech creates violence, Clarissa.
Oh, shut up. Anywho,
You shouldn't be invoking violence. Fucking hate speech.
yo, you be so proud of yourself sometimes. You crack me up. But another thing that I want to talk about is the word slave. Because anytime you hear slave or slavery, they automatically think of the abuse that's tied to it. But they don't see it for what it really means.
What it means? Tell her.
To be a slave, it means to own. It's no more than ownership. So if you're only looking at it through abuse and what was done to a group of people, then you can't see slavery when it's right in front of your face.
Facts, because there's a lot of people slave to the game.
Yeah, they're slaves and they have no idea.
No idea.
Now, this is a thought that I was having Because everybody likes, I can't say everybody, but there are many people out there that say that the party's had a switch. And I'm thinking, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck. I was hoping you was going to finish that, but you didn't.
It's a dog.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's a duck.
It's a duck. So instead of looking at what it is that they're telling you, look at the way that they move. Okay? So back then, they were the Democrat Party was the party that fought to keep their slaves. Okay? Once they lost that war and blacks were given their freedom, Lyndon B. Johnson, after the civil rights movement, he was the one that actually signed in, and I don't think it was out of the kindness of his heart. No, because he voted against
He has some bad quotes.
Every single civil rights bill that ever hit the floor, he voted against it. Okay, but once he got in, what is the first thing that he does? He brings up, he's the one that ushers in government programs. Government programs. So,
which broke up
the family and all of that. And it began to marry people to the government. So if you're looking at a plantation and you're thinking that, okay, well, we're not on a plantation. and people clown Kanye for saying what he said. But if you understood what he was saying, it made perfect sense. They can't keep you on a plantation. So since they can't physically hold you to that, what do? They physically bind you to the government. All of these programs put you under ownership of the government.
And they always want to be all up in your business.
Yeah. And every right that you have through the Constitution, they attack to make sure that you have no rights. Even when it comes to education, they fought so that you would not be educated to be able to learn how to read or any of those things. But since they can't keep you from actually getting an education now, what do? They either indoctrinate you or they don't teach you anything at all. So that's why you have a bunch of people that can't tell you anything
about history.
Anything. They can't tell you anything about anything. I've seen so many young adults that just hand me wads of money because they can't count it. I'm just like, what the hell is this?
I had a little boy, not a little boy, I always say little boy, but like a 20-year-old trying to figure out, 10 cents. He's like, I was like, it's 10 cents. $5.10. Give me $5.10. And he was just like,
no, it really is sad.
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times where
so you just give me a 5 and give me a dime. That's the little one, that one.
Yeah. They can't count. And then the sad part is that if you talk to Democrats, they're against school choice. They wanted to lock you in these schools, knowing that they're failing, and keep you in them.
Yeah, them F schools.
They are exactly the same. It just looks a little different. Back then, they used to break the strong mentally. They're doing the same thing here today. It's if you look at it, if a black person gets out of line, they summon Stephen.
Stephen, my boy. Yeah. Hello, my ass. Who this nigga up on that name?
Who this?
That's what they do. Yeah. You know what I mean? Black people will come down on other black people. They call you coons, sellout, bedwench. They have all of these
bedwench
names. Yeah.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
I heard Zambo.
Yeah, I've heard of that one too.
Yeah, that's a new one.
So that's what happens when you want to break rank from the Democrat Party. They crack the whip. They send Stephen out to get you. Who is this nigga on that nay? But afterwards, in the same clip, he goes, he's a free man. Y'all ought to hate each other. You see that? And Charles Spurgeon actually said that, I think I'm going to butcher it. Oh, God, never mind.
Oh.
Yeah, because it is really good the way that he said it. He was like, the free man offends like the slave. Free man makes the man who hugs his chain angry or something like that.
Oh, my gosh. No, that, maybe you're not getting it right, but I believe that. I believe that free thinkers really piss off the people who are in mental prisons. Because you say that, because the prison is mentally, nobody's really on a plantation, right?
Well, who are you to say you're free or that the white man isn't cracking down on you
they don't
or
like
we're
you.
not oppressed?
Yeah.
Where do you live? And it's like, in America, I live in the same place that you live.
It'd be so weird too, because, I remember one time just watching everything on the news in reference to brutality and things like that. And And I remember being scared. Like, I don't know when it was. And it was in 2020 with the George Floyd. There was one day they really got to me. And I went out and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, this is weird. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'm getting to work. None of my customers are trying to kill me. The cops aren't. Like, it was weird, you know? Like, we're supposed to be scared about all this racism and oppression. And we're out here free, just having a good old time, living our lives, you know? And then there's people walking around living their lives talking about, don't you know you're oppressed?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like drinking their Starbucks. That's why I get that whole Starbucks thing. Like I think it was Tom McDonald who talks about, you know, they be blaming capitalists and while sipping on their Starbucks and using their iPhone.
iPhones,
yeah. Like literally that's what it is.
Yeah, I actually, not to drift, but I was watching this video where this guy was at a protest where they were protesting against capitalism. And so he was going around the crowd and he was like, hey, so, you know, would you give up your cell phone? And it's like, oh, you know, I just can't right now. Well, what about, and he's going through the list of what capitalism has brought. None of them were willing to let go of any of it, but they were shouting and screaming against it. And it's just like, all of them had the same answer. Well, my setup, you know, maybe one day it would be nice for us to, you know, but we should be making goals to get to that. And I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Are you talking about the guy that was like, he was like, oh yeah, do you think black people should get reparations? And they were like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, there's a black person right here. How much do you want to give?
Oh no, I wasn't talking about.
Oh, because the girl was like, and then the guy,
call me when I walk by again. Then yeah.
And some girl was like, this is a trick.
Yeah. But I think it's very sad that the same people, and it's really odd. It's sad and it's odd.
It is
to
strange.
see the same people that are screaming about slavery on the side of the slavers and don't even know it. It's like, you guys, do you not know anything with history? And the best that they could give you is, you know, the party switch. But it's like, if I look at their movements, they're still slavers.
Yeah.
They look exactly the same. It's just that because you don't know history, you don't know what you're looking at, even though it's right in front of your face. They're trying to take away your rights. They're trying to make you stupid. You know, they want to enslave you to make you be someone that is owned by the government. But hey, we'll give you programs. But at the same time, at any whim, they can turn those programs off and you will be left defenseless. Absolutely defenseless, and you will have nothing. And I think that's even to the point where it's like they believe that the warping that they're doing in the mind is so great that in the end, you will own nothing and be happy. It's the craziest thing.
That's actually a slogan somewhere.
Yeah, isn't
the Grand Reset or something like that?
That's what they said.
You will own nothing and be happy.
By 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy about it. Why would you be happy about that? Well, turn off your brain and start listening, because we'll answer that question and more. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, which is a group of the richest people in the world who want complete control of the world. Recently, Schwab endeared the world when he said, by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy about it. Wow! That seems like a win-win, and he believes you're dumb enough to fall for it, and you kind of are.
Which is also part of that rules for radicals. Remember I was telling you? Yeah, well, the rules for radicals say that for you to own property is actually evil. And for you to want independent freedom is evil. Like your freedom should be the same as what the collective thinks. Yeah. It has to be aligned with the collective, which is pretty much where we're going now, where it's like, if we don't believe racism and reparations, then we're evil because we don't believe that. Like it's literally, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah. So for me, throughout time, we could see that it has always been about money. Money. If you had it, you were good. You know, whether you were black or white. And you even see it today when it comes to the laws or like crimes. Like Nancy Pelosi's husband gets into a car accident, you know, hurts somebody, is drunk and high on something. They bury all of it. I mean, my dude barely got charged at all. You know what I mean? But if you have money, you can get away with stuff. Same thing comes to the wealthy black person. If you're wealthy, then you can get away with things. And I think it's so sad that when I talk to another black person and they tell me about this, you know, systematic oppression, it's like, don't Democrats run the system? Like, they're in the education system.
They run everything right now.
You know what I mean? Like, they're everywhere. Like, their fingerprint is in everything.
And
so
we're doing really bad. I just want you guys to know that.
No, so, like, if you hate this system and they're the ones that's in charge of it, like, I don't understand what your argument is. But when they come
because of what Trump did.
Whatever.
No, that's their argument.
Yeah, I get it, but they can't tell you anything. It's ridiculous. Anyhow, so when they come to you, like, you were sitting right next to me I think you were sitting right next to me when they was like, "Can you get a loan?" And I'm thinking, yeah. And he was like, "Yeah, but did you get the loan?" And I was like, "Of course I did. Like, dude, wrote me a check right there." You know what I mean?
And the person who said that to you probably has no problem getting loans.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's always their argument. So when I heard somebody say that, I was just like, that really is y'all's argument, that we can't get loans?
You know what? And honestly, it's a little disrespectful in a way, because the same people who say that, I can't even tell you how many black people have come to me talking about oppression while they got like great jobs and a lot of money. And it's like, okay, dude. Yeah. You're right.
So remember, when you're voting for your favorite artist, vote to change some of these laws that are oppressing us.
It's the same ones who have literally a silver spoon and that are black are pushing this agenda. And it's like, do you see yourself, bro? Do you realize that you're actually an example of someone who made it, that is not oppressed, and you're pushing this message?
Well, with that, I think I'm going to break off into the last clip.
Oh, we got the last clip.
Yeah,
We're doing good tonight.
Yeah, we're doing real good. So hit it.
This is my actual genuine take on the whole race thing. It's not about colors. If you're a billionaire and you go into a room and you meet a billionaire from Africa and a billionaire from Mexico and a billionaire from India, do you think that as a white billionaire you think, oh, black people? No, you don't give a fuck. Rich people all get along, no matter what color they are. The billionaires all stand around and talk, and they're all different colors. Nobody minds. The only people who divide themselves by color are the poor people. And the billionaires ensure this happens. It's not about black and white, it's about rich and poor. It's always been about rich and poor. It's not about black and white, it's about Democrat and Republican. It's not about any of the things that the elites are tricking you into thinking it's about. If you are sitting here thinking, this is about white people and Republicans and I'm a black Democrat, you are low IQ. It's nothing to do with that.
Yo, my guy said you were low IQ.
really though, because you cannot walk around living life and really think it's about black and white. And I've fluctuated in income, and I've had a good amount, and I see how they treat you when they know you got good money and they know you got good credit.
Yeah.
And I also see how they treat you when they know you ain't got no money.
You damn sure ain't got that credit. Don't even look over here.
Right.
This is your application? Wouldn't even go through.
Right. You don't have a cousin, or like.
Right. Anybody can co-sign.
Right.
Yeah. Nah. It's sad because, like, even in the Word of God, you see that the theme also is about money. Now, did they have issues? Absolutely.
Right.
You had the Jews that didn't want to mingle with the Samaritans, but Jesus came and broke all of that. And that was something that had to be dealt with because they thought that just salvation came to them. And it was difficult for them to understand because it's like, wait a minute, no, God was given to the Jews. What do you mean they get it too? So that had to be dealt with, right? But once they got over it and they realized that God had done a new thing in Christ Jesus, they began to embrace them. It was the Judaizers and those that grew up in it that struggled a little bit with that. But the one thing that I see throughout Scripture is always dealing with money. So I'm going to go into James chapter 2. It starts at verse 3. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, you stand there, or sit on the floor by my feet, have you not discriminated amongst yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my dear brothers and sisters, had not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor. Is it not the rich who are exploiting you? Are they not the ones who are dragging you into court? Are they not the ones who are blaspheming the noble name of him to whom you belong? You can be looking at something, it could be right in your face, but you don't see it because you don't know what it looks like. You have no clue what's staring you right in the face. And that was a thought that I was having this morning where I was just like, Dad, don't they hear them? Don't they hear them?
That's like he said, they have low IQs. It's true. Like, I'm sorry, you know, I know you're talking about the scripture, but like the IQ is kind of low for you not to use your own like mental capacity. You know what I mean? Because like literally you're buying into all this and you don't question none of it. Mm-hmm. Nor do you want to open your mind to different points of view.
Yeah, that's the scary part.
It is very scary.
Mm-hmm. So even in the Word of God, he's saying, don't you see that these people use you? Aren't these the ones that exploit you? And
the rich people.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of funny because it's like, I was thinking how they say, oh, this country was built on the backs of slaves. And it's like, don't you see that they're now trying to destroy it on the backs of black people? Like they've used black people as a vehicle to push their ideas to tear down this nation. And you don't even see that they're using you.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. But I was just like, Lord, like, I mean, it's all out there in front of your face.
If you think you're an American, you will fight to protect the interests of capitalist America. If you know you ain't no American, you'll fight to destroy every aspect of American capitalism.
They are the vehicles in which they're using to push all of these crazy policies. Think of everything that they're coming against. It's all in equity. It has everything to do with racism. Mm-hmm. Everything is racist. Math is racist. So we're not going to teach math anymore. You know, testing kids.
Wait. Math?
Yeah, they said math is racist.
How?
Speaking of crazy, I didn't like maths much at school. I thought it was boring. But today, I learned that my dislike for maths was because maths is actually racist. Yep, you heard that right. The California State Education Panel thinks 2 + 2 = 4 is inequitable and no longer wants to make getting the right answer the main objective of mathematics. You see, it's all because there is a history of underrepresentation of black, Hispanic and Indigenous people in mathematics and mathematic-related domains. This all stemmed from a manual that was penned by these Californian educationalists. They claimed teaching methods were racist and they needed to be overhauled so that non-white pupils could, and I quote, reclaim their mathematical ancestry. Seriously, you couldn't make this stuff up. Under their ideas, getting the right answer is simple. It's called white supremacy. And teachers who uphold the idea that there are always right and wrong answers perpetuate objectivity as well as fear of open conflict. And to the rest of us, they're two characteristics of racist systems, apparently.
They're no longer going to be doing the end of the year testing to see if they qualify to be able, like, to say whether they are able to read at grade level. They are getting rid of the test, and they're just going to be graduating all these kids, not even knowing if they can read or write at all, in the name of equity.
Currently, in most intelligence or tests, Latinos and black people receive lower scores than whites and Asians. The question is what is the problem? Is there a problem with the test takers or the test? Mm-hmm. And for 100 years, Americans have made the case that black people, Latino people are not achieving intellectually as much as other people, as much as white people. And I would argue, no, the problem isn't with these test takers. The problem is with the tests themselves. These are tests that were created by eugenicists. When you look at the person who created the SAT test, when you look at the person who first popularized the IQ test in the United States, these were avowed eugenicists.
You know what's crazy? What? The rich people are not sending their kids to those schools.
Oh, absolutely not. And we are definitely not going to have school choice. But that's what I'm saying. Like, they're using black people as an excuse. Open up all the prisons in the name of equity.
This legislation marks a substantial step toward dismantling the systemic racism that plagues our communities, our state, and our nation, and brings us closer to true safety, true fairness.
Crime is almost all socioeconomically and racially homogenous. White people commit crimes against white people, Hispanic people commit crimes against Hispanic people, Black people commit crimes against Black people. That's just the data, right? And period. So what we're doing is we're abandoning poor people of color to victim crime. This movement amongst many on the left, right, to try to force feed people stuff that doesn't make any sense, right, in the name of equity. And you have the very people they're supposedly allegedly helping are the ones they're abandoning. The only ones that are being helped by this are criminals, right? And they could have very easily said, hey, for misdemeanors, we're going to have no cash bail. We're just going to have PR bonds and we're going to have supervision when we see it's necessary. But they did. They went all the way up the chain to second-degree murder. And it's insane.
Oh my God, that's
because
scary.
Black people have had it so bad. Every policy that they're pushing to destroy this country is done in the name of, balancing out the sheets and equity. Like, oh, we have to make this wrong right. So we're going to push this policy because we love you guys. But it's like, you're letting the criminals out.
That's
You're
scary.
defunding the police. Like, what the hell are you doing here? You're not going to educate. You're not going to teach them how to read, write, none of those things, and be able to count, none of that. And you're doing it all in the name of fighting racism.
Can I drift for a second?
Yeah.
The same people who talk about defunding the police are the same people who will call the police in case of an emergency. Like, why?
Because they're liars. They don't mean anything that they say. There's nothing that they have said that they've ever stuck to. Mm-hmm. None of it. With COVID, you can't get your hair done, but Nancy Pelosi can get her hair done. Mm-hmm. Your kids can't go to school, but Gavin Newsom can have his kids going to school. Mm-hmm. You can't do anything. Mm-hmm. But every policy or anything that they put on to the American people or push onto the American people, they won't do it themselves.
Oh, and don't forget, a lot of these celebrities, they talk about white people oppressing Black people while dating a white person.
Yeah.
Or married to a white person.
Yeah. Or saying that you have to give up your guns, but we're going to keep ours. You have to give up your law enforcement.
That sounds like a trick.
But I'm not giving up my bodyguards. Like, it's anyhow. But just to get back on, I do like the fact that people are now learning and starting that the truth of history is coming out, because yes. I think that the more that people dig into it and find out that the only hate that we've truly had in this country came from one party and one party only. And if you open your eyes and look at the way that they move, they still move exactly the same. And behind all of it, it's not about the people. It's about the spirit that operates in the party. Mm-hmm. And this goes into a whole nother level that I don't even think a lot of believers are looking into.
No.
You know, if this is like going to drift, and I'm going to try to make it really, really short.
Yeah.
Really short.
Okay.
If you look in the beginning, Satan was in the garden, but then you move a little bit further, and then you see that Satan is also there messing with Job. Move a little bit further, you see that with all the kings that took place, and from First King, Second King, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, all the behavior is the same all the way through. So you know that Satan's hands is in all of
always,
this.
yeah.
Then you see it now with Jesus. You look at everything that took place in the New Testament, the same climate that they had then we're dealing with now. So what I'm saying is that we have to stop looking at it as if it's just people. You have to understand that there was a spirit that is at work. There was a spirit that has always been at play. So if we're looking at it from that lens and we're saying, okay, this spirit moves in this manner, when I look at their behavior, it looks just like their father.
But, you know, as a Christian, how do you avoid, you know, being in that spirit? You know, because I think it's very easy.
Well, I think it's only easy if you're not actually inclining your ear to the word of God. I don't go looking for Satan. I spend my time listening to the Father. And anytime I hear a voice that's opposite to him, it's like, wait a minute, that don't even sound right. I already know off top that that's not him. But if you're not listening to the voice of the Father, you won't know the voice of a stranger. Because you got to think that when we were in this world system, that's all we ever knew. We were trained up by the kingdom of darkness. So all of that sounds familiar to us. So as we're listening to the voice of the Father and we're getting closer to him and understanding the way that he speaks, everything that does not sound like him, we know is from the enemy. And that's how we really kind of grow in being able to distinguish between the two.
I like that. And I think it's a good conversation to have, honestly, in reference to how to hear God's voice. You know, I think that's something we should talk about.
No, we're going to.
You know, because like I think even while we go through things, you don't think you hear God's voice. You know?
Yeah. So I guess in closing, what I want to say is that I am very, very happy that people are starting to look into the history of what really took place in our country, because I think it's so important if we're going to move forward. I found me personally, and I think this is just a truth, that when you hear truth, it always produces love. Always. Even if it's ugly. God never took anything out of the Word of God. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything that took place, he kept it all in there. And I find that the more that I see, the more I fall in love with just the history of it all, the beauty of it all. And I found that that same thing took place when I was going through our history. I became more patriotic and began to love this country more when I got into the history of it.
Yeah.
And I think that the same way works with the kingdom of darkness. The more that you get into lies, you're going to see the manifestations of the flesh. You know, the hatred, the anger, the bitterness, the jealousy, or I guess it would be covetousness. But you see all of those characteristics because it's all being birthed out of a lie. So when you see people that hold on to these, you know, the pro-black, anti-white, all of the thinking and the emotions that are packed in it are all wicked. It's all hateful. So when I hear what they're saying, it's like, if what you were saying was true, I don't think it would produce this much hate in you.
Yeah, and anger.
Yeah, there's something that has to be dealt with. So I love that they're pulling out the true history of what took place, because we're going to find out that it was both blacks and whites that fought against those that did not want to release the slaves. And it wasn't all bad. It really wasn't. There was a lot of beautiful things that took place in our history. So I'm very glad to see that people are now starting to wake up to say, wait a minute.
And it's cool. It's cool to see like just black heroes we really never even knew about, honestly.
And they won't talk about them, which is weird. No, it's not weird. Go ahead.
We already know why.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you the other day, the Underground Railroad, I'm almost 40 years old. And I was like, wait, white people were involved?
They were there the whole time, which is the crazy thing.
But like, if we really think about it, like if we're logical, how can slaves that have no money, nothing, do a whole railroad by themselves? Like what?
Stand up with laws. I'm telling you.
Like, how did they do that?
Listen, when you get into the history of what
no shmoney at all.
Yo, it's terrible what they did to keep blacks down and keep them enslaved. And again, you see it again today. It's just instead of the plantation, it's now the government. It's still a way to have ownership over you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate the time we had. It was great. Thank you for tuning in. And catch us next week, because we got some good stuff coming up.
Yep, episode 7.
Yeah. You have just watched Hate It or Love It, and you better have loved it.
I don't know about better, but I hope that you loved it.
Yeah, better. Okay. That's that.
Yeah. So what is the goal?
That is so true. The goal is to break the image of tradition
while showing the beauty of walking in wisdom,
bringing the raw and keeping it 100.
With Christ at the center, you're either going to hate it or love it. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
Hey, y'all. Sorry. Hey, guys. What's up? Welcome back to our podcast. It's episode. Oh, I should have done that. Hey guys, welcome back. You have just tuned in to episode number 6. And you already know the goal is to break the image of tradition. You already know the goal. What? I can't get tongue-tied.
I admire you pushing through
right.
it. That was a mess, though. It was a little bit of a mess. If you want to start over.
Yeah. Okay.
Why'd you clap?
Because you clapped and you scared me, and I hope I scared you.
No, I clap for the editing process, so I know where we jump in at.
So so you're the only one that gets to clap. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, because I'm the one that's editing.
Hey guys, welcome back. You have just tuned in to episode number 6. And thank you for coming back. You already know the goal is to break the image of tradition
while showing the beauty of walking in wisdom,
keeping it raw and bringing the 100.
keep it at 100.
Yeah.
You gonna have to hurry up because these lights is getting hot, yo.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome back. What? The fuck? I'm trying, okay?
Okay.
You can't laugh.
Don't make me laugh.
I'm gonna make you.
Where are you going? What was that?
That's like an action. It's action. Like, so I can't move now. I can't clap. I can't move. All right. Hey guys, welcome.
I don't even care, yo. Just go ahead.
I can move.
You are a mess sometimes.
I really am.
I love you though.
I love you too, bro. Bruh.
We did that. I'm cutting out a lot though.
Yeah, fuck you.